Hi, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Foothill Paint Fabrication. Well, we're outside, we're not in the shop for once, and we're standing next to the chassis, so that is some good news. Yesterday, I finished up getting the Impala back on its wheels. The driveline came back from the driveline shop, so I got that in. The exhaust system is in. Finished all the fuel line and the brake work, so I was able to roll it out of the garage, put a car cover on it, so it's out of my life for a little while. So we've got a really nice day today, but a storm is coming in, so I want to take advantage of the weather, what we can right now. So we're going to do a quick tour of the car. I've got some cleaner over there. I want to go ahead and get the chassis cleaned up the best we can, the engine and everything, so we're not working on a filthy, greasy mess. And then we're going to drag it up to the garage and try to get situated. So I don't know what's going to happen. I still haven't finished cleaning my garage. You know how that is, guys. It's a dreadful thing to have to clean the garage after you've made a mess, but I'm working on it little by little. So let's take a quick tour of the chassis, take a look at what it looks like right now, and then we'll get to cleaning on this thing. All right, let's go ahead and start at the front. We'll do a walk around. So you guys can see here, that's the Muncie 4-speed. We will not be using that. I'll be switching over to a Tremec. I don't know about the bell housing. I'm going to figure all that out as we go. So the engine is a Pontiac 400. It's, I don't know exactly what year it is. We're going to have to check the casting numbers and stuff, but it's very close. I think it's very close to the 67. So it wasn't the original engine. When I got this car, it had a big block Chevy 396 in it, no inner fender wells. It was a total hack job. So I yanked that out. I had this engine, so I put it in. So it was running when I turned it off. Of course, that's a famous line, right? But it's in pretty good shape. So the plan is to reuse this engine. Obviously, we're going to rebuild it. It doesn't have a lot of hours on it, so we may be able to just, it's 30 over, so we may be able to just stay with that and put some fresh pistons and stuff in it. But we'll have to see once we get on the engine stand. But all in all, the frame looks good. I've never noticed any damage to it, no twisting, no damage at all that I can find. And having the body off, I still don't see anything. So it looks good to me. Now we're going to make a lot of improvements to the chassis, not tremendous amount. I'm not going to road course this car. It'd be crazy to try to road course a 67 GTO. The things, they're like a boat, you know, you need a short wheelbase car for that kind of fun. But we are going to make some improvements to the rear end back here. We're going to stiffen up the chassis. I'm not going to buy a kit. We'll actually just cut some stuff and do it ourselves. And then the back, we'll get some improvements as well. I've got some tubular A-arms for the rear. I've got coilovers. We're going to ditch the springs here. We're going to redo all this and try to make it a lot more tighter back here. This thing used to wobble around a lot. They weren't really designed for cornering, you know, back in 67. But all in all, everything looks really straight. I think it's got a really good base to start from. No heavy rust. It's just flash rust, just, you know, being 50 plus years, 58 years old or whatever it is. So it's really in good shape. So I got my foam cannon right here, and I've got this super heavy duty degreaser I got from Harbor Freight. I don't know how super heavy duty it is, but I'm going to pour it into the foam cannon, grab the pressure washer, and see if we can't just soak this thing down, let it set for a while, and then just blast it. I got to cover the carburetor. I don't want any water going down the engine, but I think that's the only exposed hole at the moment. I think there may be a vent on the rear end that needs to be taped over too. But other than that, I just want to get this thing cleaned up pretty good, and then we can kind of start at least with a semi-clean slate before we start tearing it apart. All right, let's see what we can do. Alright, I really wasn't sure how much that stuff would foam up, but it looked like it foamed pretty good. I think I'm going to add some Dawn dish soap and do it again after I let it soak a little bit. So I'll bring you back once it soaks. Alright, let's go again. Alright, the Super Degreaser looks like it's not super, but let's pressure wash it off and see how it looks. Alright, well, it came out cleaner. A lot of dirt on it. It looked like a gopher or a squirrel, I'm sure it was a gopher, packed the frame right here with dirt. So I was just hosing that out. Quite a bit in there. Hopefully it didn't rust the inside of that. But everything else came out, pretty good. The engine didn't come super clean. Some of that grease has been on there a long time, so it'd take a little bit more than the Super Degreaser from Harbor Freight to get it off there. But good enough to pull the engine and get to work on this thing. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. I've already seen some work we need to do. When I got this car, when I saved it, interestingly enough, it was right across the street from where I was living with my dad at the time, where I grew up actually. And it was the exact same year as the GTO already had. So it was just sitting there on block. So I got a hold of the guy, made a deal. But you can see right there, we'll check that out later. This thing had ladder bars on it and all kinds of crazy stuff. They had screwed a tack to the hood, and they just took a screwdriver and just drove it through the hood to, for the lines to run. It had an oil pressure gauge and a tack, just screwed with the sheet metal screws to the hood. So it was a kind of a brutal thing to see, but I got it, and here it is all these years later, getting, I guess it's third life. So let's go ahead and let this thing dry off. I'm going to get back up to the garage and finish cleaning, and then we'll see if my little John Deere lawnmower can tow this thing up this hill. All right, guys, I scrapped the lawnmower idea. We're going to use my beautiful girlfriend's Trish, her Bronco. She's going to help me today, and we're going to just tow it up here around the corner, try to get up to the shop without any calamity. So let's just get to it. Okay, go ahead. Slow down. Come on. Keep going. All right, that's good. Whew. That thing was heavy. Thank you, Trish. Say hi, Trish. Go ahead. Hi to everybody. All right, we're going to slide this over and then pull the engine and transmission out. Okay, I really appreciate Trish helping me out there. That was kind of a tough one. That's not the last we're going to see of her. She wants to convert her Bronco into like a heritage edition. So we've got to paint the top, the grill. So I'm going to put her to work helping with that, maybe teach her how to paint. So before we get started, let me do a quick tour of the garage. So, it's not gigantic, but it's a really good sized garage. It holds 2 cars easily. So I've got a sink over here. There's a bathroom over there, just a half bath, just toilet and a sink. This is where I store a lot of the GTO parts right there. There's the hood, the brand new hood, toolbox, workbench, and until just a few minutes ago, couldn't see the top of this bench. It was cluttered and covered. You know how flat surfaces are, they just collect everything. So I still got a few things to go through and get rid of or store, but it's looking pretty good. Got a storage cabinet over here, the CNC plasma cutter. I just bought that air compressor not too long ago from Harbor Freight. It was on special. And just shelving over here with probably tons of stuff I'll never use, but I still keep it around. And then just you know, lawnmower and other stuff over here. But and there's the Impala out of my life. It's underneath the carport. So I think what we need to do first is just go ahead and, I got the drain pan underneath it. I'm going to drain the transmission, the engine, and maybe even the rear end just to get all the fluids out. And then we can get to work on getting that engine and transmission pulled out of there. All right, guys, it's the next day. Turns out 30-year-old, really cold oil doesn't drain very fast, so I just let it drain overnight. The Muncie 4-speed, it has the Boss for a drain, but it was never drilled and tapped. So we're just going to leave the gear oil in there, and the rear end's almost done draining. So we got most of it. Man, those squirrels just devoured the spark plug wires on this thing. It's crazy how much they chew on that silicone. But before I start getting this engine out, I know some Pontiac guys are watching the channel. What do you guys know about headers that will fit? Now, I know I can get the factory cast iron ones, reproduction. I'll be running Edelbrock aluminum heads, so that shouldn't be a problem. But there's quite a bit of room on this side. But on this side right over here, I mean, that is super tight. So, and these engines sit really low in the chassis. You can see how low it's slung down inside there. So there's not a lot of room. So if you guys know anything, drop me a comment, send me an email, whatever. If you got any suggestions, I would rather run shorties. I don't want to run long tube headers because it's just a mess, but I will run cast iron if I need to. I'm not totally opposed to it. The performance isn't that big a deal, but if there's a really nice set of shorty headers that will fit without me having to hammer them on, then I'd like to at least consider it. So let me go ahead and get the driveline out, and we'll get the cherry picker in here and lift this whole thing out. All right, I think I got everything disconnected. Not that there was much left to be connected to anything. So I got the motor mount bolts out, transmission mount bolt is out, or bolts are out, and I guess we'll just see if we can lift this thing up halfway level. It is a heavy one. I do remember that back in the day, pulling the engine out all the time. All right. This beast roll back here. Easy. All right, that was pretty easy. I think what we'll do next is start removing all these brake lines, fuel lines, emergency brake cables. None of the suspension's being reused. Maybe the spindles, I'm not sure yet, but the steering gearbox, everything is going. In the back, we are reusing that rear end. I had that shortened when I was, I don't know, pretty young, 20, 22, I forget how old I was. But we need to do a lot of work in the back. But let me get all this extraneous stuff off here, and then we'll find a home for it over here, and then start kind of figuring out what we're going to do next. I put these brakes on a long million years ago. They're off a 69 Bonneville, I think. This had four-wheel drum brakes, had aluminum drums on the front here, and the harder you pushed on the pedal, the bigger the drums got because the aluminum couldn't hold it back. It was pretty spooky, but there was a car being scrapped, and it had disc brakes on it, so I grabbed them. They bolted right in. What a difference that made all those years ago. But they're out of here now. One way to get it off, break it. Don't think we're going to be using this. using this either. All right, I was going to try to get this off without using the spring compressor, but I'm not feeling lucky today, so. All right, let's get those bottom bolts out. Let's see if we can get this whole assembly off in one piece. Oh. Whew. All right. One down, one to go. I hope my spring compressor's got enough thread so that spring doesn't shoot out of there. Just enough. All right, guys, got that front end totally stripped down. We got stuff laying everywhere, though. I'm gonna a lot of cleanup to do, but we got all this stuff stripped off so far. So the front end's looking really good. I think the back end, I'm gonna leave the rear end underneath it for right now. Slide this over, and we're gonna get those oil coils out of there and those old air shocks and just put it up on jack stands and kind of try to maybe figure out where those coilover shocks are gonna go, because it's gonna be coilover. So all this stuff is gonna be cut out of the way. We don't need the spring perches on top. So we're gonna change a lot of stuff back here. But yeah, and can you guys tell? I used to work at a chrome shop. I got all that stuff for free. I even chromed the drive line. It's not that one. There's one up in the attic that's chrome plated. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but it's up there. So yeah, let me clean this mess up and we'll figure out where we're going from here. All right, guys, we're finally getting somewhere. Got the mess cleaned up, and I've got the car, the chassis, pretty much at ride height, although the front still needs to go down an inch to make it at ride height. So I have to revisit that video I did, a year and a half ago, figuring out the ride height. That cross member is way close to the ground. I'm gonna have to rethink this whole thing. And my custom screw type jack stands, they're too tall. I can use them in the back, but I'm gonna have to cut those way down to be able to level this thing out. I've got a level on there right now. It's sitting pretty darn level. The back is sitting at ride height. So that's 11 inches from the bottom of the frame underneath that body mount to the ground. And that gives us 4 inches between the tube of the axle to the curve of the arch right there. But as you can see, the control arms are not horizontal at ride height. They're actually going uphill. And that's because we've lowered the frame down so much. So the mounts for where it mounts to the chassis right there, that actually needs to be raised up. I don't think that looks like it's going to be very hard, but really from everything I've learned, those control arms should be horizontal at ride height. So that way they're right in the middle of the swing, and as it goes up and down, then it doesn't pull the rear end one way or the other too much. So we're looking pretty good. I need to get these tires off here. These are not the right diameter tires. I haven't bought the rims and tires yet, still haven't figured that out. But I do need to figure all that out as well. But I need to get these off, the backing plates, the brakes and everything. I got to strip the axles out because I have to take some measurements, because I will be putting Wilwood brakes all the way around on this. And I guess there's a couple of different options for these GM rear ends, so I need to make sure I do the right ones. So let's go ahead and get these wheels and tires off and then kind of get that stripped down, and we'll just kind of eyeball this and see how it looks. All right, these are shortened axles. I had these axles shortened. I was pretty young. I don't know, maybe 20 years old. So they're not C-clip axles. They're flanged. All right, these axles are known as BOP axles. Buick, Oldsmobile, Pontiac. So like a Chevelle would have a C-clip, where the Pontiac, Buick, and Olds would have the flange type that has the bearing retained right here instead of a C-clip back at the ring and pinion. So the bolt pattern across from here to here is supposed to measure 3.072. Yeah, that looks just about right. And then it's supposed to be 2.404 center to center. But that looks pretty good right there too. And then it's supposed to be 2.652 across here. See if we can guesstimate that. Yep. Not coming in exact, but it's very hard to find the perfect center of those. So that looks pretty good. Okay, and for the last measurement, I need to get the axle back in. And we're going to make sure it's pulled. I'll put the flange nuts back on. We'll pull that tight. And I need to measure from this flange to the face right here. And I also need to measure this diameter. So once I take care of that, make all my notes, I know exactly which one to order. So yeah, the measurements look like they're coming in just right anyway, so I think we're going to be good. Now I just need to finish stripping this down and kind of figure out, what our next steps are. All right, guys, that other drum does not want to come off. It's rusted on there, so I got it soaking right now. I'll wail away at it later. The crowbar and the hammer didn't do any good, so I'm just going to let it soak. We'll get that off there, get all that stuff stripped off, and we'll be down to basically bare bones of what we needed to do for today, or last 2 days. So I've got a lot of thinking to do. This isn't exactly what I envisioned when I figured out the height and everything. I do want to stick to that number, but it's just maybe going to take a little bit more work than I had planned. But the back isn't so bad. The trailing arms on the lowers, I can adjust that easily enough. I can raise those up. I can raise the front side here on both of those and get them to run more horizontal. They don't have to be perfect, but I would like them as horizontal as possible at right height. And then the front is going to be kind of, I don't know, we're just going to have to figure out as we go. But this thing is technically still needs to go down 1 inch. And you can see where the cross member goes, how far off the ground that is. That is not very far off the ground. So I'm going to rethink that. I'm going to go back to the video I shot when I calculated all my ride heights and everything and see what I can get away with, because I'm not 20 years old anymore. I can't be scooting around on the ground, but I want it to look good. I want it to ride nice, and bouncing off the ground is not a good feel. So yeah, I think we're about at a standstill for right now. I've got a lot of cleanup to do so we can get some newer parts on here and kind of start mocking stuff up, and that'll probably be the next time you see this chassis. But we are getting there. We got it in the garage and we got it stripped down, so that's a start. All right, guys, that pretty much wraps up this video on getting the chassis cleaned up, drug up here to the house. Thank you, Trish, for helping with that, and kind of getting it stripped down. We got the engine out, got a lot of junk off of it, so it's looking pretty good. I don't see any major damage. Some crappy booger welds over here where they had those ladder bars on. We're going to repair that later. But all in all, it looks really good. I'm really happy with the condition of the chassis, the bare frame. Now, obviously, I've got a lot of thinking to do. I'll probably get a chair and just sit here and stare at this thing for a little while. I've got to figure out my ride heights for reals. Obviously, I shot that video and talked about, I raised it and lowered it to get the ride height the way I want it to look when the car's done. But I don't want to sacrifice, ride comfort and handling. So, there's going to be a compromise here. But I really like the idea when we finish that video, how it looked. So I'm going to try to get to there if we can, but time will tell. Thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint Fabrication. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Mash that bell and drop me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. We'll see you on the next one.